I'm not sure how I feel about this film. It was
This one?
yeah.
Which film?
Oh,
Tycho Titan, not Tycho. Titan.
Titan.
Tycho Interpol. That one. That's a good film.
There was my problem with it was it. I guess it's Bluth, Don Bluth's style of animation, but it tries too hard to be like a kid's thing. It's like, you've even got a character the voice is being done by like Nathan Lane, who's like basically Jar Jar Binks. And it made me wonder, like, came out. Phantom Menace came out the year before this was.
Correct. 99, same year.
Yeah.
Correct.
Same year. Yeah. It was just something.
I give it points for trying to do real science fiction.
Ish.
Yeah, but it was sort of rendezvous with Rama.
I mean, there was a kid in the beginning of it, but really it was all grown-up characters after that, which is unusual for a kid's animated film.
Yeah.
Right.
Which, by the way, this is a movie for younger people. Like, this is not.
Clearly.
But
Yeah,
that's
but it's
not how
not
they
even
sold
young
it.
adult.
They got me
It's
out of
more
the house to go see this in the theater.
Oh yeah.
It's the demographic is sort of what George was going for with Ewoks,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's too cute for its own good.
Well, there's a hero's journey in the middle of it with the ring and like the quest and like, the Han Solo guy and the love interest. And it's like there were beats on Star Wars throughout the entire thing.
Big time.
Or could be beats on larger things. Only just Star Wars I'm mentioning it because
They're familiar story beats no matter what the genre.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, Don Bluth stuff starts well before Star Wars and are all
Dragon's Lair.
Yeah, and are all basically the same story on a certain level. This one just happens to also have Noah's Ark crammed onto the side.
Yeah.
There's something about the style of the animation, the way it's kind of a restless, like a lot of keyframes, a lot of moving around, and there's a little bit of distance. It's like an itch. I can't really describe it. It's like I can resist it because
there's something unsatisfying about
it. There is. It's like you can go up against like a Disney film of the same era. It doesn't compare well. And the thing is, like, any individual frame, you look at it like that, it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
You pause it, it's like, wow. But the way it comes together
is something unrealistic.
There's something irresistible about it.
About the movement of the characters.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. I mean, it makes you really appreciate good animation, whether it's in the Warner Brothers style or the Disney style, where there's that fluidity and weight to things. Whereas this just felt very much like they were pushing these comic book looking characters around.
But I think he's been doing that long enough that is his style. Like this is his style of animation.
Yes,
it's definitely his style.
It's not bad animation. It's his style of animation.
It's like Bluth animation.
If you've ever watched a really shittily animated thing like Star Trek the Animated Series, that's where you get bad.
This is miles beyond that for sure. Yeah. But again, I think like you said, it is a stylistic thing. Whereas, like, if you haven't watched anime and you start watching anime, that will take some getting used to too, because it's another sort of aesthetic to what you do in shorthand and what you spend time animating carefully.
And if you remember a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned this as American anime. Like this is they were going for something because Anastasia comes before this, and they were going for an American anime. And when this failed at the box office, they just cut off the root of it and got rid of Fox Animation.
And I think was Don Bluth in Anastasia?
Yes.
Because I liked Anastasia. I mean, I thought there was something that was different in terms of it's the same kind of fluid style, overly fluid style, but I guess the contrast was better. I guess it was a little more simple. It had a little more snap to it. I just can't I can't put my finger on it exactly why I found this a little off.
There was weird color changes. Did anyone else notice this? That didn't seem to be motivated by like what they were doing. Like at times the characters all seemed like they were black and white, and then all of a sudden,
that was odd.
Bright color.
So Tad brings up, well, first off, the scene behind Tad, I thought, is still the most impressive thing in this
movie. It is pretty cool.
The hydrogen tree art direction. That was all
the hydrogen trees,
You haven't mentioned that on top of the Don Bluth animation, which has again kind of been his style ever since I can remember Secret NIM, the Dragon's Lair, Space Ace video games in the 80s. They're also trying to do the whole CG spaceship thing, which sometimes worked and sometimes didn't. But
yeah,
really watching this thing, I was kind of struck with the fact that this was sort of like the last gasp of cell animation on the big screen. I mean, the story is that I guess Bill Mechanic, who greenlit Fight Club, which really pissed off Rupert Murdoch, the failure of this movie basically cost him his job because Murdoch used it as an excuse to boot him.
Wow.
And the year this
kill
came
Fox
out,
Animation.
Yeah, when the year this came out was also the year Iron Giant came out, which was also one of the last high-profile cell-driven animation movies. I still think it's a minor masterpiece, but
Me too.
really, like a year later, it was all about Pixar and Ice Age and all CG movies, which has really sort of been.
Well, when did Toy Story come out?
96 or 7.
And then Disney's
I thought it was
last
94.
2D was.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I think it was earlier, Tad. You're right. It might have been
Because
90.
Toy Story 2 is 1999.
Yeah. It
Right.
was early
Disney's
90s.
last 2D was Emperor's New Groove, was it not?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And but just watching this, what it really did was it made me I saw this in the theater because it did get on my radar because of the whole 2D 3D the 2D 3D thing, and there was enough press about how it was going to be aimed at older people in terms of sci-fi, but it really made me think about the sci-fi theatrical releases that I really love, even if some of them hadn't necessarily aged all that great. But I was going through the list: Fantastic Planet, Ralph Bakshi's Wizards.
Yeah.
Heavy Metal.
You're wrong about that one, but keep going.
Heavy Metal, the movie.
Was never good.
Well,
It was never good.
Guilty pleasure, but really, and I think I might have mentioned this. So I rewatched Akira for about the 40th time a few months ago, and that remains for me that was the mic drop. Go watch
What
that.
What year was that?
88, maybe 88.
Yeah. But,
I remember really being blown away.
It's still ridiculously impressive.
that's full on cell animation and 35
Full cell
millimeter.
animation.
Animation
I don't believe there might be some CG elements that they rotoscoped over or whatever, but no one's really done anything like this ever since. This was it.
Yeah.
And
it's too bad because if this had caught on, you could have all these great science fiction stories that could have been fully animated and people would have really dug it. You could.
There's another thing that's happening at the same time, which is they're trying to do this on television too, with the Spawn animated show and stuff like that. And it's you have this. There is this alternate world where those two things become the pillars of a new kind of more adult focused animation where you can get really interesting stuff. Because you think about what was the fully rotoscoped
Through a Blast Darkly?
No,
Scanner Darkly?
the film case, Scanner Darkly.
The two Linklater movies.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
And then Waking Life, and then now he's got a series done in that technique, which is pretty good.
Which they still haven't done a second season of.
It's coming out.
Well, it's sort of what Love, Death, and Robots was aiming at, I guess.
Yeah,
right. But these are all ancillary things. These are all things that exist on the edges of culture. Whereas when this came out, this got a full-on push from Fox.
Big time.
They I think there was a Super Bowl commercial for
they needed
this was a tentpole film. They thought.
Yeah.
Anybody know what the budget was?
90?
I'd have to look it up. I mean, it couldn't have been cheap.
Yeah,
Really?
sure.
I mean, no. I mean, I don't know whether the voice talent. I mean, I guess maybe Damon wasn't the big deal that he is now when he did this. Drew Barrymore was certainly. I mean, people got paid, and I think the CG wasn't commoditized the way that it is now. So they probably had to have a room full of Silicon Graphics workstations to get some of the exterior stuff done. So
Oh yeah.
I don't know, Tad, if you're fast fingers, but I have to imagine this was in the $20 million range.
I think it was more than that.
But it was more.
Yeah.
They probably spent a couple $1 million just on the soundtrack.
Sure.
It's supposed to be like
the needle drops.
75 to 90 is what they say on Wikipedia.
$1999.
That seems like a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money.
The
But
music
again-
is all bad though.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
bad, man.
It
No,
was
it's not.
this is back to what Chad said. That was the era. It was and needle
Yeah, I
drop
know.
stuff.
It does not age well.
It does not age
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
There's a few sports metal songs.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, exactly. I'm surprised Creed wasn't in it, as a matter of fact.
Yes, sure.
No, these bands are way cooler than Creed.
I know. Well, everything in the world is
Splashdown, Lit, like there's legitimate that.
Yeah, it's
Too bad
all
they didn't
like
have that Chris Cornell song.
creme de la creme, late '90s alt rock, etc. But this
Did I secretly pick two movies to make you listen to the stuff that I liked in high school? Yes.
this
Damn
just-
you.
It seemed like this was just a lot of missed opportunity because yes, tonally you've got like these kind of wackadoodle characters voiced by Leguizamo and Nathan Lane, and then you kind of got this, the sort of typical protagonists and Drew Barrymore and Matt Damon. I mean, it was a lot of boilerplate characterizations. There was some really cool stuff that they could have done with the art direction. I think they did do in certain instances, like again, the hydrogen tree scene, I think is still like just gorgeous.
Yeah, well, they shut up during that.
Yeah.
Also
Just
true.
kind of the visuals talk a little bit. That was kind of
Let's do CG spaceships with 2D cell animation. I think worked, except when it didn't. But
They
it was
also
it was a swing and a miss. I appreciate the swing for sure. I appreciate
Right. They went the thing that I like about this, and the reason that I think it's worth paying attention to now, is one, what could have been, and then two, that they fucking went for it.
They did go for
They
it.
legitimately, everybody tried. Like, this shit's gorgeous. This
It's
scene, I think you
gorgeous.
keep talking about the hydrogen tree,
yeah.
but them flying through the
It's like a nebula.
Yeah, that was
the
gorgeous.
nebula, and they've got the wake angels around them the entire
Yeah.
time.
That was
like that-
really cool.
That shit's rad. Like,
Yeah.
They could've explored
The
that a little more.
the scene that worked the best for me was the cat and mouse game in all the mirrored ice
right.
flows that were
Exactly.
floating around. That not only looked great, but it actually was probably the most successful action scene, because it actually wasn't an action scene, it was a suspense scene, and it played. It really worked.
up from Lady from Shanghai.
Yes, of course. I mean,
Well, it's
yeah.
also a
Enter the
submarine
Dragon.
movie.
It's run silent, run deep kind of a
Right,
thing.
it's a
And
submarine
that
movie.
always, for me, I'm a sucker for that. Wrath of Khan did a great job of it.
Mhm.
Any spaceship movie that
The
does
first
that.
one with
Empire Strikes Back
Mark
did
Leonard.
it.
Yeah.
Well, if you
But
want
yeah,
to,
the Star Trek with Mark Leonard. Yeah, exactly.
as a
you can also
Roger.
go back. You
That
can
is-
also go back and you can watch the bad version of that in Wing Commander. Wing Commander does that, and they do an absolute shit job.
Mm.
Like it's funny how you can fuck that up. You can do the spaceship as
Submarine movie.
and just completely fuck it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Wow.
weird.
Yeah, they get
Wait, did
rid
Bowie
of
Ball do
programs.
Wing Commander?
No, that was
Oh.
I think wasn't that Chris, what's his name? The actual guy who did the video game directed it?
It's
think
entirely
so.
possible.
Chris Roberts.
It's,
Entirely possible.
I didn't
That's-
see that. When did that come
Oh.
out?
90.
wait, was this it for
Yeah.
Don Bluth? Was this his last film?
Anastasia, I think.
I go.
But
ahead.
yeah.
Anastasia was before this.
Okay, yes, this if you look him up, like he's kind of
That's it.
That's it.
That was
Okay,
it.
good enough.
this is what he did, and no one wanted to do it anymore.
And his
after this.
co-director
When was Bakchi's
hasn't
last
gone back
film?
to animation either.
Mm.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
and they did a bunch of stuff together before this. Like, yeah, it basically ended both of their careers.
Yeah. One thing
But
is about,
again-
about this is like Don Bluth.
Not
This is
soon
true for
enough.
like Dragon's Lair and a lot of stuff he did before. His monsters all kind of look alike. They have beaks. It's a dude with a beak. And it's like you keep getting that over and over again, the dude with the beak or the chick with the beak and maybe a queered legs or two.
a
Like
lot of animal character,
Yeah.
like
It's
sometimes
it's
take on
barely
an animal.
anthropomorphic. where you're like-
Turtle.
yeah,
This is like a
exactly.
giant
Snapping turtle.
behind
That's just a
me.
chimera. It's a earth life.
Yeah.
Though, except for the bad guys were really good in this. I thought.
Oh, I'm glad you said that, Scott, because I thought that was a really original idea for a scary alien villain. Was those guys,
yeah.
the way they looked, and then just the idea of them, like the way that their technology was completely different, and they kept melting through walls and
That
stuff.
was really, really.
I mean, I've never seen that done
no,
before.
that was where
It was touches like
sci-fi.
that.
Yeah.
Touches like that, or the zero gravity in the galley.
I mean, it was a simple gag. It was great.
It's a simple gag. It worked great. And just the fact that this is a completely original story. It's not based on anything, and he just created a whole backstory with this whole universe full of weird looking aliens and stuff and spaceships, and like you said, this whole Noah's Ark
It tended
story.
to jump around, I found.
Yeah, it wasn't
Even
quite
sometimes
cohesive
within scenes.
Yeah, but even it wasn't quite cohesive at all times. But again, points for trying and points for doing something.
Yeah, I think some of
original.
that. I think some of that's also probably budgetary. But like, you think $75 million is a lot of money to make something like this, but with how much it costs to render those graphics,
Oh yeah.
they probably wanted this to be a 2-hour movie, and they couldn't get there just budgetarily.
Mm.
You
And
know,
it was probably
like,
before they had an overseas tweeners, go to
Yeah.
India with in betweens or Malaysia, so they had to do it all in the United States. And it must have cost
And
them.
again, I mean, you had to have Silicon Graphics or Sun workstations to. I mean, you couldn't run this
At that time, yeah.
Yeah.
I admire this movie way more than I think it's successful.
when
And
you look
it
at, I
really
mean,
is like it's like this was it was the end.
like you look at about how
we sort of
shitty
took
South
over.
Park looks, and like how it's kind of a joke that South Park looks shitty,
Uh-huh.
and you realize that was also made on Silicon Graphics workstations.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Right.
like that's what you can do with one. So think about how many it takes to do this.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
The thing about South Park is that it's done in a Silicon Graphics workstation at the time, but you're not pushing the processor that hard. It's
For
like
sure.
flat bits
Yeah.
of color, and you push a
And
button
I
and it
mean,
renders.
they originally did it in like Flash.
Yeah, or something
Uh-huh.
like that. Yeah, and of course the pilot was all done with paper cutouts.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. Well, golly, anything else? Anything left?
It's fun revisiting this thing because I had not seen it since it came out 23 years ago.
yeah. I mostly wanted to put it out there as it's not something that I think enough people talk about. Like, I wish this was
No one
more
talks about this.
right. I wish this was
Yeah.
more influential, because I want to live in the world where this launches a whole other way of doing sci-fi.
Mm.
It's not unlike Avatar in that this was a big budget film that looked completely unusual, very different from everything else. And it was a risk. It was a huge risk when they made that film.
And it was somebody's brainchild. It was
someone that says one guy with a vision, or two people
Yeah.
with a vision that came out. It just, so some win, some don't. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, so I guess show of thumbs.
Glad I saw it.
Yeah, I'm glad I
Yeah.
saw it. It
Yeah.
wasn't entirely satisfying, but I'm glad I saw it.
Everybody.
We're all the
We're all
same.
like,
We're all here.
Woo, woo.
Yeah. Again, like you said, I admire it more than I enjoy it. Like, it's
Yeah,
my
yeah.
pick, and it's my pick, and I admire it more.
Right.
Oh, okay.
There you go.